Even if you found out you're talking about since someone is osuk with the kvura, he's patur min mitzvahs.
Right.
Besides that din, there's also a din of oinin is patur min mitzvahs, even if he's not osuk with the kvura. Yeah, even if he's not osuk with the kvura. So zog to Gemara, the Tanya we learned, Yom Shmua, the day he hears about it, we'll treat like the Yom Kfura. Now the Yom Kfura, at most, is only an oinin midrabanan. The only aninus midoraisa is the Yom Hamisa itself. There's a machloikis if the night after the Yom Hamisa, he's also an oinin midoraisa, or maybe he's only an oinin midrabanan. But the only for sure doraisa l'chula almo is the Yom Hamisa. The Yom Kfura for sure it's only midrabanan, but it's a severe midrabanan. Why? Because mitzvahs shiva u'shloishim. Lagabe shiva and shloishim, it's just like the Yom HaKfura. However, lachilas psachim were mekel. But the Yom HaKfura, he wouldn't be able to eat the carbon pesach at night. He wouldn't be able to bring the carbon pesach. But for achilas psachim, we treat it like the Yom Likut Atzomis. The Yom Likut Atzomis could be 10 years later where they're being mefana, right? That is a much lesser level of aninus. Against also the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan saw to treat the Rabbanan the Kaninus of Yom Likut Atzomis similar to the Yom Shmua, and that's going to be in a less severe fashion than they're going to treat the Yom Kavua. Right? And there, the Echad so which would tell you that we would allow him to bring the carbon pesach, right? But then the Brisa says something that totally contradicts what we said a minute ago. Echad zeh, which bepashtus is referring to Echad zeh Sayyom Akvura and Sayyom Likut Atzomis, Toivel v'oichel b'kachim l'erev. So that's a stira, because from the first half of the Brisa, it's mashma that Yom Akvura you wouldn't be able to bring the carbon pesach and eat it that night. Yet the Seva says straight up. So that was the steer. So the first answer was Rab Chisda, who said maybe it's a machlokes tanoim. It's a machlokes tanoim if the Yom HaKvura, if we aser the Yom HaKvura, if he's not allowed to eat karbanos at night. The first half of the Brisa says that he's not allowed to eat karbanos at night, and therefore he can't bring the carbon pesach. And the second half of the Brisa says echad you could eat karbanos at night, so you could bring karbanos during the day, right? That was the first tense. And we're going to need to delve down into the details of this machlokes. How do you know taka that there's taka machlokes by Yom HaKvura if it applies to the night after as well? Because that's the shaila. Is he also considered the night after the day of the kvura, right? So that we're going to have to get back to. The Gemara is going to get back to finding a proper machlokes tanoim about this. But Rabbi Bar Huna had a different shot. He said, "Kan sheshama shmua al meisai samach l'shkiachacham." When do we say that even by the Yom HaKvura at night you can eat a carbon pesach? That's if the Yom HaKvura was before Shkia, meaning the Kvura happened before Shkia. And we're talking about eating the carbon pesach after Shkia, which is the Laila Achar Yom HaKvura, right? There, everybody holds that there's no dinaninos. V'chein sheliktu lo yatzomis samach l'shkia zachamo, v'chein shemeish l'meis v'kavari samach l'shkia zachamo. Any derabanan dekaninos is only valid the day of, not the night after. And that's what the end of the Brisa means, echad zeh ve'echad zeh, toivel ve'oichel b'kachim l'erev, because there's no dinaninos the night after. The Rabbanan never answered al-taninos the night after. Where there's ever a concept of the night after, that's going to be by a aninis daraisa of Yom Hamisa. But Yom Likut Atzomis, Yom Kvura, Yom Shmua, these are all days where there's only an aninis by the day and not by night. But the Chan, the first half of the Brisa, that makes a distinction between Yom HaKvura and Yom Likut Atzomis, as well as Yom HaShmiya, la'achar shkiyas hachama, meaning la'achar shkiyas hachama means the Kvura happened after Shkia. If the Kvura happened after Shkia, then the night that we're discussing is actually the day of the Kvura. So Avada, you cannot bring the carbon, right?
That's about Shmua. That's what it's true.
We're talking about the Kvura. Right? The Yom Kvura, if the Kvura was after Shkia, then you for sure can't eat any karbonis. You're anointed, right? But if Yom Hashmiya occurred after, or Likrat Tzomos occurred after Shkia, right? So there, yes, there's a din anis for the Rabbanon, but when it comes to a Korban Pesach, they'll say you can still eat the Korban Pesach. Now you could see this a tremendous leniency in the Rabbanon of Yom Hashmiya and Yom Likrat Tzomos over Yom HaKvura. They're all the Rabbanon. Why would they treat one more severely? So Rashi explains later on is that 9 out of 10 times the Yom HaKvura is the Yom HaMisa. So they were afraid if we'll show leniency on Yom HaKvura, people will get mixed up and even show leniency on Yom HaKvura if it's also Yom HaMisa. But the Yom Likrat Tzomos is very rarely the Yom HaMisa, right? And Yom HaShmuyah can't be Yom HaMisa because by definition it's not on the same day. Okay, so Zog the Gemara, the Chan la'achesh Shkiyas HaChama. Fragt Gemara la'achesh Shkiyas HaChama might have hava. If it's after Shkiyas HaChama where he heard about it, right? So let's think. He had already brought his Korban Pesach during the day, right? So why should we let him eat it? The whole reason why we normally let him eat it, we said on Amud Aleph, is because if we don't let him eat it, he's not going to want to shecht it. But he shechted it already. He didn't even know about anything until after Shkia. So why should we let him eat it? So you clearly see from the way Rabbi Bar Huna analyzes this brisa, Rabbi Bar Huna has a ganza guteraya that this brisa must hold that achilas psochim akva, and that's why if the Yom Shmiyah or the Yom Likrat Tzomos was by night itself, where there's an inus, they relax it for the achilas psochim, because otherwise his carbon will be possible. Rabbi says, I don't come with whole kashas. How did we touch echod zeh ve'echod zeh toivel v'oichel b'kachim? We said sai yom hakvura and sai yom likrat tzomos. Either way, toivel v'oichel b'kachim b'lerev. And we said, how could you say that yom hakvura is toivel v'oichel b'lerev, where it's macho from the first half that you can't? Look, Rabashi, who said echod zeh ve'echod zeh is referring to the yom hakvura and the yom likrat tzomos. Maybe echod zeh ve'echod zeh is going back. We said ulachilas psachim, yom hashmu is like likrat tzomos, and that's what it means echod zeh ve'echod zeh. And likrat tzomos and yom shmua, you could toivel and oichel kachim b'erev. So it's not even coming. Maybe echod zeh ve'echod zeh is not even talking about yom hakvur. It's only talking about, we're comparing likrat tzomos to yom shmua. It's referring to those 2 days. Echod zeh ve'echod zeh.
What did we say? What did we think originally?
That echod zeh ve'echod zeh means yom kvura and yom likrat tzomos. So I when I saw Rav Ashi's teretz, I got very excited because this is how I learned Pshat the Brisa when I first learned the Brisa. So I didn't chap about the Gemara's kasha. I didn't even chap the Gemara's kasha until I saw Rav Ashi. When I saw Rav Ashi, I realized, my teretz was pashut. Echad Zev is referring to Yom Likrat Tzomos, Yom Shmiyah. Who's not talking about Yom Kippur at all? So I was very proud of myself till I got to the next line. Rav Ashi, my Echad Zev, Echad Zev, Hachigomer, Echad Yom Shmua, Echad Yom Likrat Tzomos. That was great, but the Gemara says idiot. The Hadar Rav Ashi Medusa, he thought a good shot. So I busted my bubble. I'm so excited. Rav Ashi has my teretz, but Dr. Gemara Rav Ashi's teretz is rejected. Why? Michdi alaka. What does it say? Ulachilas psachim kiyam likrat tzomos. So if it wants to say that Tzai Yom Shmua and Tzai Yom Likrat Tzomos, you can eat the carbon, it should have said Zev v'zeh oichel. Right? Echod zeh is clearly talking about the big picture. So Zog to Gemara, Michti alakoi. We're talking about Yom Likrat Tzomos and Yom HaShmua. Zev v'zeh miboile. El Shemamina Bedusa, he clearly Echad Zeh is also referring to the Yom HaKvura. So that takes care of Rabbi Bar Huna. So you see how Rabbi Bar Huna knew that Achilus Psuachim is Ma'akva, but the Gemara is not done. The Gemara is going to bring a more in-your-face raya with the names of the Manda Arim that hold this. But we're going to get to there in a second. Umay Tanoi. What is the Machlokes Tanoim? Because Rabbi Chisda wanted to say that there's actually a Machlokes Tanoim if the night after the Yom HaKvura is there an Isser onion for it, right? That's what Rabbi Chisda wanted to learn. So where do you find such a Machlokes? It's the Tanya. Ad Mosai Misoinin Elov. How long do you have to be in onion for? Are we talking about Yom Kippur? We're talking about Yom Misa? I don't know what we're talking about. So we're going to assume in the Hamini of the Gemara that we're talking about Yom Misa. So if someone loses a parent, someone loses a child, someone loses a sibling, Ad Mosai Misoinin Elov. How long is he in onion for? Kol Hayoim, just a day. Rabbi Yomer, not even the whole day. Kozman Shalei Nikvar, only until the Kvura. Frank the Gemara b'may asking, what is the case over here that we're talking about an onion? Ilema b'yoy misa. If we're talking about the yoy misa, then this machlokes makes no sense at all. Mi iko the less lay the yoy misa, the toughest lay midarabanan. Everybody agrees that yoy misa, where there's an avelos dairaisa, there's an aninus dairaisa for the day. Everyone agrees that at least midarabanan, there's for sure aninus at night. So how could the Tanakama say it's only by Yom, and how could Rabbi go even further and say it's not even a whole day? Visu, I'll bring you another raya that this brisa can't be speaking about Yom Misa. Because what was Rabbi's opinion? Rabbi Yomer calls man shala nikvar. Ha kavur ishtrelay. So you're telling me, according to Rabbi, there's no such thing as a full day of aninus b'daraisa on Yom Misa? The pasuk says there's a full day. Umi iko the lesla ibacharisa kiyoy mar, which is where we know aninus from. It's a full day. So it cannot possibly be that this brisa at Muslim is Einelov is talking about Yom Misa. So Omar Absheshes, Ayom Kvurka, it's talking about the Yom Kvura. So that answers all those questions. But now we need to delve down, even on Yom Kvura, where do these shittas come from? Masker Rabbi Yosef, Elahodik Atoni, Hashemeya Al Meisoi is Kabbalaka Atzomai, similar to the brisa that we started with. And what is the halacha? Toivel v'oichel b'kochim le'erev. You're allowed to eat tonight. Right? That's talking about Shemei Malakit. Ha Mechlal Diyam Kvura, which is the same diak we made in our brisa, right? Mechlal Diyam Kvura, Afilu Erev Nami Lo. So we for sure have a brisa, which is the diak that we made at the beginning over here. We for sure have a brisa who holds that the Yom Acha Yom Akvura, you also cannot eat karbanos, right? The problem is, who is that Tana? Hamani. It can't be Rebbe, because Rebbe also doesn't even last the whole day. And it can't be the Rabbanan, because the Rabbanan says most is till the end of the day. But nobody says it goes to the night as well. So who's this? Who's the Shita? Elatritz, we have to change the Brisa, because we need someone in the Brisa to hold that there's a din aninus at night as well. So ad mosem is oinin alav, kol oisayim ve'leiloi. So we're amending the Brisa, and we're saying that Chum hold that the Yom HaKfura, not only the Yom HaKfura, also did karbanis, the leiloi the following night as well as also did karbanis. And Rabbi Yomer calls man shalei nikvar, as long as it was a nikvar, well nikvar beloi leiloi. If it was nikvar, then at the end of the day he's oisayim. So now at least we have a machlokes that makes sense. Rabbi is mekel and holds the aninus of Yom HaKfura is only for the day, and the Rabbanan holds that the aninus of Yom HaKfura is also for the following night. Good. Amrua Kamei, the Rabbi Yirmiyah. They told over this explanation to the Brisa that Rabbi Yosef said, they told Rabbi Yirmiyah. And Rabbi Yirmiyah rejected Rabbi Yosef's pshat. And he said, Gava Rabba Rabbi Yosef, someone so great like Rabbi Yosef, I'm not going to get into what Gava Rabba means. Lema Hachi should say such a pshat. Lema the Rebbe Lakula, he's going to learn that Rebbe is a mekel when it comes to Hilchas Avelos of Yom HaKfura. He's mekel over the Rabbanon. I'm going to show you that when it comes to Adin Aninus, Rebbe is actually a machmer. Because Vatanya, at Mosai Misoinin Alav, how long is someone anointing for? Calls Manche the Nikbar, Afilimi can be Adas or Yom, but the Rebbe, which you understood it. Until the Kfura, it could be a week, it could be 2 weeks, but until the Kfura, this is an oinin, and he's not allowed to eat karbonos.
But the person has to be involved in the kvura. I don't think that if there's, from what I understand, the hilchas aninos.
You're referring to the halacha that an oinin is patim in a mitzvah because he's oisik b'mitzvah. We're not talking about that. We're just talking about whether or not an oinin is allowed to eat a carbon. We're just talking about one facet of that.
Got it.
That's not totally in oisik b'mitzvah patim in a mitzvah.
Okay.
Let's say a child is not going to go around. Who knows where he's not an onion for mitzvahs.
I don't know. I don't know the halacha, but I'm pretty sure that once you're done with dealing with the mace, you're no longer an osuk b'mitzvah patim in a mitzvah. Right. But you still have an onion l'gabe achilus kochim. So they're both called the same name, but they're actually different things. One's a din of a osuk b'mitzvah patim in a mitzvah. One is a din of Asher Lechel B'Kochim. V'chachamim Maimer ein misoyin love elo oisayim bilvad. So you see clearly Rebbe is the machmer when it comes to Haninas, not the Rabbanon. So how could you, Rabbi Yosef, attach the Brisa that Rebbe holds that the Haninas of Yom HaKfur only last that day, and the Rabbanon hold the last night after? It's not logical to say that Rebbe is the machmer. Ela tritzachi. So therefore, Zok Rabbi Yirmiyah, this is how you need to understand the Brisa of Admosai Misoyin Olav. Admosai hu Misoyin Olav, Kol Oisa Yoim Beloy Leiloi. The Tanakama holds that the Yom HaKfura, you're misoinin only the day, not the night. Rabbi Yomer calls man shaloi nikbar, as long as he was a nikbar, you'll be an onion. And even them nikbar, toifes leiloi, not only will the Yom be usher, the following night will be usher as well. So Zokt Rashi, here Rabbi Yirmiyah came out with the final pshat in the Brisa of Admosim is Oinin Alav. And he illustrates quite clearly that there's a machlokes between Rebbe and the Chachamim, where Rebbe holds the Yom HaKfura also includes Anidas for the following night, and the Chachamim hold only for the day of the Kfura, and that is the machlokes in the Brisa above that Reb Chisda was alluding to. Good?
You only said that the night follows the day. If the Misa was by night, Ruah was by night, then Enos doesn't go to the next day.
That's correct. Then that night is the Yom HaKfura. Oh, you want to know if it go? It's like the Onion Vest and the Urzarua by Nida. Probably not. Yeah, I hear. She's Dr. Gemara weiter. So Amrua Kamei de Rav. So this final shot was presented to Rava, and this is what Rava said. Mitaka Amar Rabbi Yosy Yom Kavura Toifes Leila Midarbanan. If Rebbe holds that the Rabbanan Dika Aninus of Yom HaKfura extends to the night, right? Why would he do that? He would only do that because the Rabbanan are Mesakin Ken Dairaisa, which means he must learn that the Aninus of Yom HaMisa, which is Dairaisa, also includes Mida Araisa, the Aninus of the following night. And since the Dairaisa Aninus is set up with the day and the following night, when the Rabbanan made the Rabbanan the Aninus of Yom HaKfur, they set it up the same way, where the Aninus is b'day and by the following night. Make sense? So Zog to Gemara, Midikam Rebbe Yom Kavur Taibas Leila Midrabanan, Mechala must be the Rebbe must hold the Yomisa Taifas Leila Midaraisa, and they were Mesakin Kain Daraisa. But the problem is that's not true. The Sova Rebbe Aninus Leila Daraisa, I'll prove to you that he holds it's not Daraisa. But Tanya, Hey Na Yoim. This was when Moshe accused Aaron. Why did you burn the Chatas? Why did you burn the Sirish Chodesh? Why did you say the carbon is possible? So Aaron said, Hey Nayoim, and we're going to get into these psukim in detail today. We're going to learn the whole parsha, how we understand the conversation between Moshe and Aaron. But he said, Hey Nayoim, meaning Ani Ayoim Osir V'Layla Mutter. What are you talking about, Aninos? I am allowed to eat. I'm allowed to eat tonight. Meaning, even though normally Midaraisa Aninos is the day and the following night, there was a special allowance made by the Miluyim when Aaron and his children were doing the Avodah to allow him to eat, even though he was an Oinen, the night after Elazar Nadav Nevi'u died. Why? As far as because there are no other Kohanim to eat. L'dairis, where there's plenty of other Kohanim, so the Kohen Gadol won't eat, another Kohen will eat. But there was nobody to eat. So therefore, Hein Hayoim Ani Aser V'Layla Mutter. But U'L'dairis Bein B'Yoim U'Vein V'Layla Aser Divrei Rabbi Yehuda. So you see, Rabbi Yehuda holds clearly that L'dairis, the Oinen of Yom HaMisa, is an Oinen side by day and side by the following night, Mida Ayraisa. Right? Rabbi Yomer Aninus Laila Eina B'Divrei Torah Ela B'Divrei Sefer. So you see clearly Rabbi holds Aninus of Laila by the Yom HaMisa is only B'Divrei Sefer. So I beside by the Yom HaKvura, why the whole Yom HaKvura is only B'Dirbanan? Why would they add on the Laila afterwards, where even by the Deraisa doesn't have that? Right? Even by the Deraisa is only Dirbanan. Zog to Gemara L'Olam Dirbani. The fact is, you're right. Rabbi holds only Dirbanan. So why would they add the following night? Very simple. Because the Chachamim also physically the very Yosy. They're more makmer on their takana than the Torah was makmer on its halacha. The Torah said only by day, not by night. But when they made the takana of Yom HaKvur, they said it's by day and by night. Okay, gewaltig. So we basically finished this sugya, and we learned a lot about Aninos. Everybody agrees that Aninos of Yom HaMisa is Daraisa. There's a machlokes Rebbe and the Rabbanon if the night following the Yom HaMisa, if that's Daraisa or the Rabbanon. Yom HaKvur, everybody else is the Rabbanon. There's a shaila whether or not they added the extra night, right? That was the machlokes of Reb Chisda, that we had a machlokes between Rebbe and the Rabbanon about where we say that Rebbe holds it's the following night, even by Yom HaKvura, but the Chacham hold, but by Yom HaKvura it's only Yom HaKvura, and then we have Yom HaShmiyah and Yom Likut HaTzomayis. We have a Shita who would even hold that on those days, even in the actual Oina, meaning if those occurred at night, you would still be able to eat the carbon, and that's where we had our proof from that the Achilas Carbon Pesach is Ma'at. Okay, gewaltig. Now we're going to learn the whole parsha of what happened there with Aaron and Moshe with the Chatos. So in order for us to get clarity in what's going on, I should really pull out a chumash. I don't have a chumash right here, so what I'll do is I can use the psukim that are inside the Gemara. Just so much more geschmack when you can see it in order. You get a chumash? So we're going to find that story. Vestir Achatas Darash Moshe. So that is Vayikra Yud. So let's get this story. So this is a story that occurred on, I think, the last day of the 7 days, the 8th day of the Meluyim, where Moshe Rabbeinu was doing the Avodah, and I think then Aaron HaKohen took over the Avodah, right? And that day was Rosh Chodesh Nisan, and amongst the karbonis that were brought, there were 3 serum brought. There was the Sir Rosh Chodesh, which was the standard carbon that's brought every Rosh Chodesh, right? And then there was the Sir Nachshoin, because that's when all the Nasim started bringing their karbonis. And then there was another Sir that was brought. There was also a Mincha that was brought. So let's have a look-see at what happened over here. By Ravi in Parashat Shmini. And it says as follows. Vayidaber Moshe el Aharon ve'el Elazar ve'el Yisamar banav haneisar. Chuas ha-mincha, take the mincha, haneiseres Moshe Hashem. This mincha was an exclusive carbon that was only for that day. It was not a standard carbon mincha. It was the mincha that was designated just for that day. V'ichlua matzois eitel ha-mizbech. You're going to eat it. The kohanim are going to eat it. Ki kodesh kodeshim hi. So HaKadosh Baruch Hu clearly told them, "You're an onion. I don't care. Eat it anyway." Right? That's the black and white. V'achal t'moiseh b'makom kodesh ki chakka v'chak b'necha hi meish Hashem ki chein tzuvesim. I told you, eat it even though you're an onion. The Gemara is going to focus on these words, ki chein tzuvesim. But clearly, what Moshe is telling Aaron, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, eat it because I said that you should eat it even though you're an onion. Then
this is very misa.
This was Yom HaMisa, correct. V'eschazei atnufa v'shoika truma toichlu b'makim tar again ata u'banecha u'baneisecha itach ki chakcha v'chak b'necha nitnu b'zivkei shalmei b'nei Yisrael. You're going to eat that as well. Shoika truma v'chazei atnufa al isha echalavim yaviu lahanav tnufa l'fnei Hashem. Tnufa on these ivarim v'haya l'chol v'necha itcha l'chakaylam again kasher tziva Hashem. Moshe is saying you're allowed to eat these karbanos as an oinen, Hashem said, right? Then Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to know why they burnt the Seir Achatos, which was the Sir Rosh Chodesh. The Seir Achatos darash Moshe. Moshe mond Aaron for it. V'hinei sarf, they burnt it. By Yiktsoif al Elazar al Yisamar b'nei Aharon and Noisar and Lamor. He asked them, Madua lo yachaltem as Achatos b'm koyma kodesh, which is of course Molei Ahava that we referred to once, right? The Rosh Tevis is Mem Lamed Aleph Molei Ahava, right? Ki kodesh kodeshim. Why didn't you eat it? It's a serious chodesh that's mekaper and tumas mikdash v'kedasha, right? That's what the serious chodesh is mekaper for. Hein loyhuva estam ala kodesh pnima, and we already learned this. What's the problem? Did it become possible because the dam was brought into the kodesh, or ala kodesh was it brought outside? Was it possible yotze? It wasn't possible yotze. It wasn't possible because it was chnis aleicha. So I bezoi, why wouldn't you eat it? Because you're an onion. So we have three psukim. There's kasher tziva Hashem, right? There's kasher tziva, and then there's kasher tzivesi. I told you to eat it. So Yidaber Aaron al Moshe. So Aaron responded, I didn't do anything wrong because Heina Yoim Hikrivu es Chatosam es. Today we were makriv the Chatas and Oilo. We're going to see what Aaron meant in that response. Lefnei Hashem, v'atekreni oisei kaela. We'll see what that means as well. Was I supposed to eat it? Would Hashem have liked it? So Aaron here is explaining, justifying why he didn't eat it, why he burnt it, right? And Moshe obviously accepted it. Vayishma Moshe v'yitabein. So what happened over here? What was the story that happened? The Gemara is going to bring two versions of the story depending on how you learn it. So Zok Tahela Gemara Tanu Rabbanan. It says Ki Chen Tzivesi, which Rashi says is referring to by the menachos, right? That was in the first pasuk when it talks about the menachos. Eat it even though you're an einin. Kasher tzivisi was referring when he mondam. How come he didn't eat the chatos? Kasher tzivisi, like I told you to. Why didn't you eat the chatos like I told you to? Right? And then it says kasher tziva Hashem, which is referring to the achilas chazav v'shoik, where that was a special cover for Babi Yom, that Hashem said you should eat it even though you're an honest. So Zok to Gemara, this is what these three psukim mean. Kichein tzuvaisi means ba'aninus yoichlua. Kichein tzuvaisi that says by the minachos is that Baruch was saying that Moshe was saying over that even though you're an oinen, you should eat it. That's number one. Kasher tzivisi. Here was where Moshe Rabbeinu told Aaron, "Why didn't you eat the sirachatos? Why did you burn it like I told you to?" Right? So Moshe was saying, "B'shas ma'isa." Right at the beginning, as soon as you became an oinen, as soon as another Nevi'u died, I went over to you and I told you, "Don't worry, you still should eat all the karbanos. Even though you're an oinen, you should eat all the karbanos." So when it came to the chatas getting burnt, he says, "Why didn't you eat it like I told you? I told you as soon as the umglik happened, I told you that shouldn't change the halacha. Why didn't you listen to me?" That's b'shas ma'isa. Amarlan. He told them as soon as he died. And then kashachiva Hashem is Moshe saying, "I didn't make up this halacha. Loy me'alai ani omer. The Hakadosh Baruch Hu was mitzvah that you're supposed to eat these kochim even though you're an omer." Right? Which clearly tells us that the reason why it became possible could not have been because of an eining, because it was repeated multiple times that there's no problem of aninus for the korbanos of that day, right? Frank Gemara or Rabini, the Brisa says mepnei aninus nisrfa. It was because of aninus. That's possible. Lakach nemer ka'ela. That's why it says ka'ela. And just to give you a sneak preview of what this ka'ela means is Aaron said to Moshe Rabbeinu, "Vayidaber anal Moshe," but the Krina Isaac Eila. This happened to me. I became an oinen. So you see, it's referring to Aninus. So that's a stira because it's matra from the first set of psukim, the first brisa that has nothing to do with Aninus, and now we have a brisa that's refresh was Aninus. So Ha Rabbi Yehuda, Ha Rabbi Nechemia. There's actually a machloikis as to why Aaron HaKohen burnt the seir chatas. The Tanya we learned, Mipnei Aninus Sarfua, Lakach Nemer Ka'ela Diver Reb Nechem. So the second brisa that says Mipnei Aninus is going according to Reb Nechemia. Rab Yehuda of Rab Shimon Aimer, Mipnei Tuma Nisrafa. They burnt it because it became Tameh. It had nothing to do with Aninus. And I'll prove to you, Zok Rab Yehuda and Rab Shimon, that the problem cannot possibly be because of Aninus. Shimata Aimer Mipnei Aninus Nisrafa, then Hoyul Shloshtan She Yisrafu. Why did they only burn the Sirah Chatas, the Sirah Shchotish? There were two other Seirim that were brought. Why weren't they burnt? So obviously, it can't be Aninus, because Aninus would have applied equally to all three Karbanis. It must be because it became Tameh. Davar Acher, another reason Dr. Bidin Reb Shimon why you cannot say it was aninus, because everybody agrees that even if normally aninus is the rise of Yom Misa, for sure by the miluyim it was going to be mutter to eat the kachim at night. The aninus would not continue to the night, and that's going to come out again later on when the Gemara delves into the shittas of these tanoim. Davar Acher, there's a third reason why it can't be aninus. Because yes, Aaron and his children were oinim, but there was another kind that could have eaten it. So there's three arguments that Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon made to tell Rabbi Nechemiah it cannot possibly be aninus. So of course we're going to have to find for Rabbi Nechemiah, right? Rava wants to say that it's not a stira. The original brayso that says aninus is mutter, but also says that aninus arfua is actually not a contradiction. Idi Rabbi Nechemiah. It's going according to Rabbi Nechemiah, who holds Mepnei Aninus Arfua. So what about all these psukim that are mater aninus? V'lo kasha. Kan b'kache shah, kan b'kache dayis. So here's the big chiluk. Rabbi Nechemiah said that yes, there was a special heter, kasher tzivesi, to eat kachim, even though you're an oinim. But that only applies to the special karbonis that were special for that day. But the Seirish Chodesh, which was a standard carbon atadairis, that did not have that exemption. So now, right off the bat, we already have an answer to why all three didn't burn, because the other two have the exemption. They were special karbonis for that day. It's only the Seirish Chodesh that would have been possible. You could also say that all these psukim, that to say that they were able to eat at night, that would also be only an exemption for the carbon that was a Hayra Shah, not a carbon of Dairis. The only kasha we still left with is Pinchas. What about Pinchas? Pinchas could have eaten the Sirish Chodesh. Okay, but at least right off the bat, 2 out of 3 kashas on Reb Chemia's answer. So now the Gemara says, very beautiful. I told David Zolti that this is mamish, a simply pshat Gemara. How do they touch the psukim? Pashat pshat of the psukim. So Zog to Gemara, we have a series of psukim that we learned before we started the sugya. How do they each learn through the psukim, where one party is going to learn that it was a problem of aninos, and one party is going to learn it was a problem of tumah. And what was the discussion between Moshe and Aaron, and why did Moshe accuse, and how did Aaron fix it? So let's have a look. Zog to Gemara. Very beautiful. Rabbi Nechemi Matar Tzluhachi. Madu lo yachaltem. Moshe Rabbeinu admonished Aaron, why didn't you eat the chatas? Amalei Moshe Aaron. So Moshe says there's several possible reasons that you might have passed this carbon. Is it Shema Nichnas Dama Lafnai Lafnim? Amalei Aaron said no. Hein Lehuva As Dama. It didn't go Lafnim, right? So Moshe said Shema Chus L'Mechitzas Yata. Amalei no. B'Kodesh Oisa. V'dilma ba'aninus akrivesua upesaltua. Maybe the reason why you passled it is because you were an oinen and you did the avoida when you were an oinen, and therefore you passled it. Right? Is that the reason Moshe asked him? Is that why you passled it? Omer loy. So Aaron said, of course not. Moshe v'chihemi krivu ani yikrafti. They were makrit. My children were makrit as kohen hediyat, who's not allowed to do avoida when there's an oinen. I'm a kohen gadol. I did the avoida. I'm allowed to do the avoida when I'm an oinen. So doing the avoida as an oinen couldn't have passed it either. But Omer lei hein loy huva as dama uvakodesh oisa. So if that's the case, if there was no psul at all, and the kohen gadol did the avoida, and he could do the avoida when he's an oinen, so achol toichlu oisa kasher tzivisi va'aninis yechlu. So why didn't you eat it ba'aninos? That was the taina that Moshe Rabbeinu had to Aaron. So you know what Aaron the Kohen answered? Omer loy v'tekreni oisei ka'ela. After all this happened to me, that I became an oinen and I lost my children, so I'm an oinen. Are you telling me when I'm an oinen, v'achalti chatas hayoim, had I eaten the carbon as an oinen, hayide ve'ene Hashem? Would Hashem have liked that? Now Moshe Rabbeinu obviously was accusing you were supposed to eat it. There's a special heter. Right. But Aaron says, you think Hashem would have been happy if I ate it as an oinen? Shema loy shemata, you Moshe Rabbeinu, who you heard and you keep on hacking me and telling me that an onion is allowed to eat today. Maybe that was only because Shah. Maybe that heter that you heard about only applies to the special karbanos for the Yom HaMiluyim, but not for the Sir Achatos, which is a Sir Shchodesh. I don't need any psukim. I have a kal v'chomer that a kohen gadol shouldn't be able to eat at the Vision 9. Kal v'chomer ma'asher kal. If you're not allowed to eat meiser when you're anointed, the kodesh darish kolshkein by a carbon like kolshkein. So Aaron pushed back to Moshe and he said, Moshe, you're jumping all over me. You're claiming I should have eaten it even though I'm anointed. I'll be your raya that this heter you're talking about would only be referring to the special karbanos of the day, not to the Shirish Chodesh. Moshe backed down and says, you know what? You're 100% right. But Moshe was a major anup. He could have said, no, I didn't know this. He didn't say that. He was Maida. He didn't say, no, that's not what I heard. I heard that it goes even on every carbon. Ella, he was Maida, Shamati v'shachachti. Now that you're reminding me, Aaron, you're 100% right. Rabban Shem Taka said that this special exemption is only for the special karbanos of the day, and it does not apply to the Shirish Chodesh. You are 100% Rab Aaron in how you learned. So that was a conversation. Geshmak conversation. And the Maisa, why did he burn it? It was because Aninas, because there was nobody to eat it. So we still have to figure out what about Pinchas. Rabbi Yehuda, Rabbi Shimon, Hechem Etarchalu, they learned that it was Tumah. How do they understand the Psukim? So Kamar Hechem Etarchalu. Again, the same was a very similar dialogue. Madu lo echalta masachatas b'mkam hakodesh, shem nichlas dama lafnai lafnim, amal hein lahubas dama. I cannot speak now. I will call you back after the meeting that I'm in. It'll be in about a half hour. So zot kamar amal lo hein lahuba as dama, hein lahuba as dama, shema chutz mitzasa yatzes, amal lo hein b'kodesh aisa. The same dialogue as Rab Nechemiah. So far, it's the same dialogue. But here's where it departs. The Dilma Banias Akravisu Bisula, Amaloi, Maisha, Hein Hikrivua, the Pasal Buaninas. You think my children were makrib these karbanos that would Pasal Aninas? Anigraftia. I was one who was makrib them in Akain Gadol, does avoid it even though he's an Aninas. So now, Moshe Rabbeinu asked him, here's where it departs. The Dilma Agav Mimaraichu. Maybe since you were so bitter because you had a horrible experience that you lost your two children, maybe that caused you to lose focus. Pashatuba, you were not careful, and you allowed the carbon by mistake to become tummy. So now Moshe Rabbeinu is saying, is it possible that you allowed the carbon to become tummy, and that's why you burnt it? Amar le Moshe, kach ani beinecha. Is that how you look at me, Moshe Rabbeinu? Shadim vaza kache shemayim. But you think just because I would suffer all of these tragedies and I lost my children, you think that would shake my resolve to do the avoid it properly, and I would be mevaza kach shemaim and I wouldn't watch them properly? Is that what you're accusing me of? Because it's the lashon it's kaila. Even if this and more happens to me, no matter what happens to me, no matter how much I suffer, so now Moshe was perplexed. If everything is perfect, why Taka didn't you eat it? Amar loy v'yihein loy huva as damavat uva kodesh oisa. So then achal toichlu oisa ba'kodesh kasher shevisi ba'nir shechlua. So then Aaron responded, Amar loy shema loy shemata ela balayla. Masking that this special exemption even applies to kedushay doiris. It would apply even to the Shirish Kodesh. I'm asking to that. But maybe the exemption that you have, that we can eat it, doesn't mean we can eat it during the day. Maybe we're only able to eat it at night. Maybe that was a special exemption of the Aninas of Yom HaMisa doesn't apply to the day, but maybe we were allowed to eat it by night. Because the Iba Yom, to say that even by Yom we should be able to eat karbanos even though we're in Einin, so we would have had to, we couldn't eat it by day, we had to eat it by night. Yad vayishma Moshe vayitav be'inav. He said, you're right, you're only allowed to eat at night. Boish Moshe loimer lo shamat, loy boish Moshe loimer lo shamati, lo shamati v'shachachti. So for the Gemara, so then what's the problem? So why did they burn it? They should have saved it and eaten it at night, right? We're back to square one. So why did they burn it? Why did they burn it? The teretz is tuma ba'onis basa. If they would have been eating it right away, they would have been watching it. But since they set it aside because they weren't going to be able to eat it until tonight, therefore it became tummy by mistake. That's what happened. Dr. Rashi, tumma ba'onis, sharatu la'shoyz had alayla, ula'oichlon kulon yachad, v'nitmas ba'onis. And that's why there was a problem. Zog to Gemara. Bishtemel Rabbanon. According to the Rabbanon, Hainu dechsiv hayoim. What does it say in the pasuk? It says in the pasuk, V'daber Aaron al Moshe, when he was fighting back, when he was pushing back, Hein hayoim hikrivu es chatasom v'seilosam. Meaning, Hein hayoim. Today I can't eat it, but I'm going to eat it at night. Right? That's what he was going to say. So Bishlama l'Rabbanan. I'm sorry. Bishlama l'Rabbanan. Hani d'chsev hayoim fakert. The Amri, the Rabbanan say echad kachi shah v'echad kachi dairis laila hutam v'layom. Yeah. So according to the Rabbanan, it was only the laila that was hutter, not the yoim. So that's why when Aaron pushed back, Aaron said, "Hey na yoim ikribus chadasam." By day I'm not allowed to eat it. I was only allowed to eat it by night. So it makes sense the word hayoim that Aaron stuck in to his response to Moshe. He was trying to say, I'm not allowed to eat it by day. I was only allowed to eat it by night. Right? Hello? I'm sorry?
Hayoim being daytime.
Right. And that's why he's stuck in the yoim. I'm not allowed to eat it by day. I eat it by day, and Hashem would have been happy if I'd eaten it by day. Elul Rab Nechemia, where he learns that I can't eat the carbon Rosh Chodesh, I can't eat it at all. I can't even eat it at night. Because the whole heter wasn't given to Rosh Chodesh. So I'm saying, my hayoim. What does hayoim mean? And then with the day, I can't eat it at all. Hey, I can't eat it. Zok Gemara, you know what he means hayoim? My hayoim, chayvashem. What do you mean? Hey, hayoim, this isn't the carbon that's special for the miluyim. This is hayoim. This is a regular chayvas hayoim that's l'dairos. And on that, the exemption of aninus doesn't apply. So we're getting now to the nitty gritty of each word, how it fits in according to each Tana. Zok Gemara, Bishtem Reb Nechemia, who learns that the exemption does not apply at all to the Sirah Chatos, the Sirah Shchadish. Hani d'chsiv hein hayon. That's why it said ein hayon. El Rabbanon my hein hayon. Zok Rashi. Ella. Bishtam Reb Nechemia hani d'chsiv hein hayon. Kloimer carbon zeh l'chayvas hayon. He said hein hayon. This is a daily carbon. This is a Sirah Shchadish. So it makes sense why it says hein hayoim. Claimer carbon l'chayvus hayoim karb v'kachay darisu v'ani eichlon oinen bitmiya. You want me to eat as an oinen kachay daris? Shemaloi shemat el b'shal shah. But elo l'rabbanon. What do you mean hein hayoim? You should have had hayoim. El rabbanon amar shemaloi shemat el b'layla ka'amarlei ma'id kamar hein hayoim ikrivu. He should have said hayoim ikrivu. It's by day. What do you mean hein hayoim? So Gemara hachi kamar. Hey Nikrivu Aniyakrafti. He wasn't even talking about Achila. He was talking about Akrava. Hey Nikrivu, you think my children were makar of this carbon? I was makar of the carbon. And therefore, there was not going to be he was referring to not the Achila, he was referring to the Avoida. And he said, Al Avoida, there's no problem of Aninos because I was the one who was makar of this carbon. Beautiful. Amar, and now we're going to go to the tinus, the three tinus that Reb Yehuda and Reb Shimon had to Reb Nechemia to say it couldn't have been a psul of Aninos. So Tanya number one was Amar Mar Hayu L'Shoshan to Yisruf. My Shloshan, what three kabbalas are we referring to? The Tanya, it says V'sir Chatas Dorish Moshe. So Seir, when it says the Esir Seir is Zu Seir Nachshon. That was the special carbon from Nachshon's kabbalas. Chatas Zu Chatas Shmini. That's the special Chatas that again was a Hirah Shah just for the Yemesh Shmini. And then Darash is referring to the Shir Shal Rosh Chodesh, which is the problem. Yochon Shloshan Nisrafu. You might think all three got burned. Talmud Loimer Bini Sayraf. Only one of them got burned. Echad Nisraf v'lo Shloshan Nisrafu. What does it mean? Darash. It should have said Darash Moshe. What time is a double lashon? Shtei Drishas Lama. Amalu. This is what Moshe Rabbeinu asked him. Why Why did you burn the Sira of Rosh Chodesh? The Elu Munachos. But the other Kabbalah you left. So you say Mimanashich. Either you should have burnt all three, or you should have eaten all three. Why did you only burn one? The Eini Idea Ezehu. I don't know which one was burnt and which one wasn't. Kisha Oimer the Isa Nasan Lachem Losses Savaina Eda. So that was clear which one Moshe was moneying them for having burnt. The one that carries the sin of the Eda, which is the Tumas Mikdash V'Kadoshav, that the Sir Rosh Chodesh is Mechaber for. Havi Oimer Zeh Sir Shal Rosh Chodesh. Okay, about it. For Zok Gemara, Shaper Ka'amri Lei, they have a good taina. They have a good taina. Why weren't all three burnt? If in fact it was because of Aninus. So Gemara, Rabbi Chemil Tamei, Domer Kachay Shah, Loi Pasal Buhaninus. That's Rabbi Chemil's whole shita. That the whole heter of Aninus was for Kachay Shah, not for Kachay Dairis, and therefore Aaron Taka ate the other two, even though he's an onion, because he knew that there was a heter for it. Kashatzil Hashem. Amar Mar, he should have eaten it at night. Again, Shaper Amar Le. So Gemara, maybe he holds Kosover Aninus Laila Dairaisa. You see from here that Rabbi Nechemia holds that when it comes to the Yom Misa, the Aninus of the Laila is Dairaisa as well. So they couldn't have eaten it at night. Because according to Rabbi Nechemia, there is no heter for Kiddushay Dairais. And at night as well, it's just as prohibited because he holds that there's an Isur Daraisa, right? We had a Machloikis. We just had a Machloikis at the bottom of Amud Beis. If it's a Daraisa, remember the Rebbe holds it's the Rabbanon, and remember the Chum said it's Midaraisa, right? We learned it from the pasuk of. We learned it from the pasuk of. We learned it from the pasuk of. Right? So we said that there's a machlokes if Aninus is the Raisa, Rebbe holds it's not. Aninus Laila, Rebbe holds not the Raisa, but the Rabban holds is the Raisa, and that's what Rabbi Nechemia would hold. Now we have the third kasha, which we didn't understand an answer to. Dover Acher v'le Pinchas hayomer. Shaper Karmelite. So tomorrow, no. Sovala Krebelazar. He holds a Krebelazar. Rabbi Nechemia holds a Krebelazar that Pinchas could not have eaten it. You know why? Damar Belazar Rab Chanina, loy niskayin Pinchas acha hargul Zimri. Pinchas didn't become a kohen until he killed Zimri. Tichsiv at that point, v'hoysa loy ulazari acharav beris kunas oilam. At that point, it didn't happen. Pinchas was not a kohen, so he couldn't have eaten it. Rashi Amar, it was even later than that. Acha some shaloim ben ashvatim. And Rashi relates that there was a story where Reuben, Gad, and Chat Menashe made their own mizbeach, and everyone thought it was for Avodah Zarah, and they wanted to wage war. But they sent Pinchas to negotiate with Reuben, Gad, and Chat Menashe to discuss the mizbeach, and it turned out that everything worked out well, and it wasn't a mizbeach shalisser, and he made shalom between the shvatim, and that's when he became a kohen. Shenemar vayishva Pinchas hakohen. He was always called Pinchas ben Elazar hakohen. Pinchas ben Elazar ben Aaron the Kohen. The first time you find that Pinchas himself was called the Kohen is after that Maaseh where he made Shalom. It says Vayishma Pinchas HaKohen and Seir Eder the Russia Alpha Yisrael. No. It's the Zaydas were Kohen, right? He didn't get the Nkuna because it says V'Hoyza Loylos Ayar Acharav. I'm sorry, that's by Pinchas, but it says by Aaron and your children. So Pinchas, I guess, wasn't included in that. The Idich Nami, I don't understand. How could you tell me that he didn't become a Kohen until later on when he made Shalom? Doesn't it say in the pasuk after he killed Zimri, So Gemara, yes, is not referring to kahuna. It's referring that he had a bracha. What was the special bracha? Rashi says he had a special bracha. He got a special bracha when he did that. Rashi says. Bisrai, the Torah gave him a special news. Shaloi tivsoik kahuna mizarai. But he was told that we'll see later. He was promised that all of the kohen gadol will come from him. But that's going to happen. But it didn't happen yet. So that's how he learns. That's what it was. Frag the Gemara. The idach nami yoksiv vayishma Pinchas hakohen. He became a kohen right away by Ma'aseh Zimri, but he didn't get the schos that his children would also become kohen. That schos he only got when he made shalom, as Rashi says, as Rashi liyachas ari acharov mimei Moshe niskayin, baruch hashem shalom nisyaches likore kohen uliyaches zaroi b'mailos kahuna liyaysom kohanim gedolim shalihaya kohanim gedolim elohim pichas. So he was a kohen already for Bimei Moshe. But when did he get a special schus that all of the kohanim gedolim are going to come out of him? That he got later. So I jumped the gun. I said that's what the bracha was. No, the bracha was shalativsa kulim mizari, nothing to do with kohen gadol. It's only according to the Arab Shad, who learns that he became a kohen right away. Bimei Moshe, when he made shalom, he got upgraded to the kohen gadol status. Okay, zok to Gemara weiter. Omar Rav, Moshe Rabbeinu kohen gadol. Moshe Rabbeinu had the status of a kohen gadol when he was doing the avodah in the Beis Hamikdash, and therefore v'cholik b'kodesh shemayim, and he was able to eat from the karbanos that are normally only the kohen can eat from. Shenemar me'el hamiluyim l'Moshe hayil l'mana. It says that Moshe Rabbeinu ate from the el hamiluyim, so clearly he had a din of a kohen. The kohen gadol meisvei v'aloi pit. I'm sorry.
Wasn't Aaron?
Yeah, but Moshe was also. Yeah. Shrei Gemara meisvei. What did the Gemara ask before? They asked Reb Nechemia, how could you say it was Altanidos? Why couldn't Pinchas eat it? Right? If you want to say that Moshe was a kohen gadol, if Moshe had a status of a kohen gadol, Moshe said I would have eaten it. Why would you throw it out? So Gemara, Dilma shiny Moshe the Torah b'shchina. Yes, Moshe Rabbeinu technically was allowed to eat it, but he was way too busy to be eating it. The Omar Mar Moshe Bashkama Allah Bashkama Yor, during that whole period, he was up on Har Sinai getting lessons. So he was so busy going up and down and learning Meis Leis from HaKadosh Baruch Hu that he wouldn't have had time to sit and eat to coach him. That's why the Gemara didn't suggest Moshe, but technically he could. Meisvei Lechem Eloikov Mikachei HaKadoshim Umin HaKadoshim Yoichel. So the pasuk says, Lechem Eloikov. And I think that is going on Moshe Rabbeinu. I think it's going on Moshe Rabbeinu. Let's have a look. Rashi will tell us what it's going on. Lechem Elikov. I'm sorry. I'm wrong. So this pasuk of Lechem Elikov, Mikachei Kachim Kachim Yochel is referring to a Balmum. Even though he can't do a Vaida, he gets a Chelak. If he can even eat from Kachim Kachim, Lama Nemer Kachim Kalam. The Nemer Kachim Kalam, if we know he can eat from Kachim Kalam, Lama Nemer Kachim Kachim. The territories, each one has its own Chiddush. Elo Loi Nemer Kachim Kalam, Hayisi Kachim Kachim Hu Oichel. You know why? Shari Hutlu Lazor V'Lahen. You find a Zor was once upon a time allowed to eat Kachim Kachim, but you never find that a Zor was allowed to eat Kachim Kalam. You know where you found that a Zor can eat Kachim Kachim? The Gemara is going to say soon, Moshe Rabbeinu. You see, they let him eat. So the Gemara is going to be right from there. We call him a Zar. He's not a Kohen. Right? But that's going to be the Gemara's raya later on. Kachim Kalam lo yoichal. He's not allowed to eat Kachim. So that's why that's the Kachim Kalam he could eat. If he'll never Kachim Kachim, it would have only said that he could eat Kachim Kalam. He said, remember Kachim Kalam yoichal. Kachim Kalam. And not touch Homer, the Kachim Kalam doesn't have the same level of Kedusha. But maybe because Kachim lo yoichal, the Kach Nemru that a Balmum can eat Tzai Kachim Kachim, Ulkach Nemru Kachim Kalam he can eat. Which Zor was ever allowed to eat Kaddish Kachim? Lav Moshe. So you see that Moshe was a Zor, unlike what Rav says that Moshe Rabbeinu Kohen Gadol. Zok Gemara Amar B'Sheishis Loi. It's not referring to Moshe Rabbeinu. It's B'Bama Lazar. Karbanos that were brought on the Bamais. Remember, you didn't need Kohanim to do the avodah there, and anybody could eat the Karbanos. So therefore, that's where you see a precedent where Kachim were eaten by a Zor. You see that precedent by the Bamais, and therefore a Balbum can eat it. But this will only work if we hold Yesh Mincha B'Bama. You know what? Because what Kachim were they ever allowed to bring on the Bama? Only the Dharma and the Davos. Not a Chatas, not a Nasham. So what could you bring? And the oil nobody's eating. Elamai was a Shlomo. A Shlomo is Kachim Kalam. So where do you see that by Kachim he was able to eat? Zakt Gemara, it must be he holds Yesh Mincha B'Bama A mincha is kachim, and that's what even Azar was able to eat. Why is that a kasha? What about Shlomim? Shlomim Azar was able to eat as well. So Oibazoi, you have a right that it can eat kachim kalam too. Now the regular meat is not what we're talking about. We're talking about the chaz of a shaykh, which goes to the kohen over there by the bama. The kohen, the Azar would have been able to eat it as well. So how come we don't have a right in kachim kalam? Teretz is there was no chaz of a shaykh by bamas. Someone brought a shlomim on a bama. He did not give the chaz of a shaykh to the kohen. All of the meat was eaten by the bailam. So therefore, you don't see that Azar can eat it. Only from a mincha. Meisvei, Miriam miyaskira. Who locked up Miriam? In other words, if someone has a nega, a kohen has to look at the nega. So which kohen looked at the nega? Im tamer Moshe askira, Moshe zaru. Moshe is a zar. He's not a kohen. He's not qualified to look at negoyim. The ein zar royas and negoyim. Vim tamer Aaron askira. And if you're going to say that Aaron locked him up, Aaron Karvu, but Karvu is in the goyim. So the Rishonim ask, and Moshe wasn't a Karv, and Yechami was a Karv, but the Brisa clearly wants to stress that Moshe was a Zar. So you have a right, Moshe was a Zar. El Kavod God the Chalak LaKadosh Baruch Hu Miriam HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself. Oisashah, he said, Ani Kohen, Ani Maskira, Ani Chayil Tov, Ani Poitra. Katani Mias, Moshe Zar, Vein Zar Rice in the goyim. So how could Rav say that Moshe was a Kohen? Nachman Yitzchak, Shiny Maris in the goyim. The Aaron Uvanav Ksuvim Leparsha. Sure, Moshe Rabbeinu had the din of a Kohen Gadol, but you need Aaron Uvanav. You need a Kohen who not only is he a Kohen, his children are Kohanim as well, and he didn't have that, and that's why he couldn't see the Negoim. Okay, we'll stop here and we'll have tomorrow, but we got through a Shemaka Gemara now. So we finished Kufan.